Hi, and this is WCCC here, and we're doing kind of like an odd piece right now. So, did a lot of gaming today in a server I host over in Indy, Gallows Mech PvP or whatever I ended up calling it that day. Gallows is probably the best name, but it was I think it was two, three, maybe even four people kind of proposed the idea of not stacking, aka compressing weapons, and kind of like this point of posterity versus performance, and whether it's kind of a violation of the game's mechanics or if it's how it's meant to be played. So this right here, this is an opinion piece. I'm not going to bullshit you. This is my opinion put out there and how I think it relates. I'm putting this in this playlist here because this is for a competitive series. You know, we're talking about how to be competitive in a server. If you want to be competitive, even if you aren't pulling punches of any kind, you can still get your ass kicked and still have a lot to learn the next day. And that's great. You know, making mistakes is more important than achieving success most of the time. So, with that in mind, I want to kind of talk about the idea of trying to compete in a competitive game mode while simultaneously pulling punches, aka putting restrictions on yourself. I mean, at this point in the game, we have couplers, we have invisibility, we have cannon tubing, we have compression pistons, we have lots of methods that actually allow for the size and the operation of your mech to actually differ from appearance and function. You know, look at this guy right here. This is what I call the Acheron. This is a giant compression tech disaster. I don't even know. It works very well. It might not look fanciful on the outside. I don't know how it looks, but I'm not a fashion guy. I'm a function guy. And I can tell you right now is that every inch of this is meticulously built to follow certain guidelines. The weapons are compressed. There is many compressed sets of weapons for the sake of tactical flexibility. We're looking at a setup that has heavy armor plates mounted on the shoulders, on the thighs, on the front of the guns, like heavy machine guns you might sometimes see in real life or other video games. You know, we have Ceradec plating on the heavy machine gun plating, for frank's sake. I mean, this is just an absolute, no punches were pulled, and this thing is a war machine. On the surface, it looks a lot like a Rex, I'm not going to lie. In fact, it is stature, height, width, virtually identical to a Rex, and the back cannons and the flight systems don't help. But if you take a look at this right here, right now, I'm pretty confident you're going to find there really isn't actually any similarity between this and a Rex. The legs use my usual formula of rotator, hinge, hinge. I think Rexes might have done something different. I don't know, I've only looked at a couple, so I'm no expert off the top of my head by any means. The actual torso isn't even a torso. This is kind of a mind whatever, you can fill in the blank. You know, we have a singular Omni turbine instead of dual Omni turbines. A single, very high-powered Omni turbine, might I state. And that thing is mounted in a giant Ceradec rib cage. Look at this thing, it's 8 ribs that are each 8 pieces of a U shape. We have box on sled on heavy steel plating, and it is just this colossal mess meant to take round after round after round of heavy fire straight to the chest without making the turbine or core quit. It's meant to take a hammering and back, quite frankly. And in front of that, we have a hardened steel plate with swords for deflecting extra fire, and an integrated personal shield unit, might I point out. So, you ask me what I think about the idea of bringing absolutely everything to a game and fighting to be the best. I think that is, to your fellow gamers, about the best thing you can do. It might not always feel golden if you have a guy that's kind of new to the game or doesn't have a good machine. So in most cases, if you want to hold back or you want to bring a toned-down machine for a good game, I don't blame you. In fact, I salute you for that. But we're talking about if you want to get in and you want to jump into a giant battle or you want to jump into a competitive battle and you want to really, you know, lock horns and just absolutely go everything at it in a chaotic fray of piloting skill, engineering skill, and everything in between. I think that is usually how you're going to end up in the best parts of the competitive scene. The most fun, in my experience. I'm not everyone. I'm not everything. But if we're going to carry on, I want to kind of drive a point home. Because, you know, I get the idea that when you use compression tech, you are able to get more firepower in less space. And it is kind of like, that does sound game-breaking to an extent, but it's extremely intentional. And in fact, this is what I want to point out, that the technological curve in this game is always doing what compression tech is already doing. You know, you could say, I want more thrusters without being a bigger target. Well, you could paint them invisible. You could do that with rotators, hinges, all sorts of things, but you can make them invisible and non-tangible. You might miss out on a stat bonus, but it's another way to kind of change between the function and the external size. You know, if you want to talk about how you're going to be doing technology anyways, Jesus, look where I started. I have an entire story to tell you guys right here, right now. You know, we're looking at this. This is, what is this? This thing is a disaster. Look at this. This thing has zero knowledge of grouping put forward. We're looking at an interior of the tank that is all specially shaped with meticulous sculpting. So we have a blowback kind of recoil spring bolt here. I mean, this thing has a camera mounted on the gun. That's how old this damn thing is. But it was a predecessor to other concepts. Let me see if I can... Well, I've even renamed the controls on this. That's how old this thing is. Yeah, let's see if I can find a way to kind of disable what we've got here. No, apparently not. Oh yeah, so here's our right mouse, so we can do third person. This has got old crappy headlights that don't do anything. It's got a main gun that has a kick to it, and it operates a recoil spring. Well, if I want to make a better recoil spring, I could save myself space many ways. I could be doing grouping so the parts don't stick together. I could actually improve the design of the gun overall. You know, I don't necessarily need a locking bolt mechanism on the interior. I could actually change from using all the sculpting to actually using slabbing instead. It would save me large amounts of diameter on this gun. And in fact, I went on and I would go and do that sort of thing later on, because that's what technology does. You kind of see the point I'm dragging home here. Here's the dreadnought. That's a pun. We're talking nautical knots. And if you look at this, it has a giant, just absolute monster sandwich cannon. Well, how did they get the sandwich cannon? Well, actually, what I did is I used a minimal amount of rounding so the cannons don't stick together. I used, I believe I used slabbing and shaping on the interior of the gun, in just all the right ways, so it actually doesn't necessarily lock up. And on top of that, so I used round cannons that actually don't stick to the interior of the gun, was the main thing. I didn't need a locking bolt, and I used round barrels for all the square parts, every other gun. So this entire thing doesn't stick to any of the interior parts. And this was at the end of an arms race for this. This started out with like 2 double-barreled turrets, and then went to 2 quadruple-barreled turrets, and now it's at a single 8-barreled turret. We go and look what this turret does. It has blowback. It has the same blowback sort of mechanism as installed in my other thing. It's exactly what I was doing. And I mean, why I had the thing with blowback, I think it looked cool, and I was able to prove scientifically it had a very microscopic effect on recoil profile and muzzle climb. But as I'd improve the technology, it would become more and more efficient, and that was really all there was to it. You know, it was the better alternative for the most part. And wow, this take a long time to load. So yeah, look at this. We've got our sandwich gun. Look at that. Just rolls left to right. Look at that. That's a beautiful gun design. And this boat probably still holds through today. You know, it's a brute force brick, but it works as a boat. The optics are a little clumsy and outdated, and I probably could have done better. Definitely could have compressed it. The side guns are kind of ridiculous. Let me see if I remember how the hell to fire these damn things. Yeah, that's right. I think it was numpads 1, 2, and 3. We have like, you know, these little broadside cannons. We got little over-deck mortars going on. We have a lot of stuff going on here. So we talk about where technology's gone with this. This boat is potent without using any compression tech. This predates compression tech, in my usage at the very least. I think I might have used very slight amounts of compression tech in here. No, I used invisibility, which is kind of like compression tech. Then I would go on and I would make this big stunning conclusion one day that, holy crap, there actually is this whole big deal. I think I named it The Scourge, if I'm not mistaken, because I have a big archive file. Yep, The Scourge. This thing. Scourge of the 7 Seas. This was my first experience with compression tech. And I'll show you what, there is a big trade-off here. I mounted all this little mini machine gun, a little bit of barrel length for accuracy, put in like this tiny boat, and I compressed, and I used invisibility to cut down the profile, like I said. We've got thrusters, we've got automated gyroscopes, we've got fake rudders, Using dummy material, that's also another way to change your function versus fashion. Dummy material. Heavy material alters your profile. Totally alters your profile because you are getting more bang and less size. And while it does have more blatant trade-offs on some things, let me show you how this boat performs. Because this boat right here, it's going to sit here and it's going to shoot, and it's going to just shoot in place. And I could go on, and I think there's a, what was it, Q or something? I want to say there's a button here. Oh, turret on for mouse too. So you have a little control for that to add balance. Because this kind of steers it when it's in the water. And I'm like, pew, 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 pew. And we were actually doing this in low 100% spec when it was invented. And I could shoot for just a little bit, and I could tank my entire energy supply just with this little MG. And it seems like it's crazy. Well, it's really not that crazy. It's the thing. It's tiny. Yes, it's tiny. Look at it. It's, for its size, it's highly effective. But it shorts out in energy. It has balance problems. It can steer aside too easily. Most of the problems with this machine were actually derived from its attempts to be compressed. I even cut back on the guns. It was an 8-piece, and I tuned them down to 5 because the energy cost made it dead later. There's a point where you are getting more bang for your buck with compression tech. Quite frankly, you are taxing your energy more. And while you might not think of that, because a lot of people play on 999 or zero consumption servers these days, if you are in the competitive scene and you want to compete with a bot, and you're saying, oh, no, I don't use compression tech, why? I mean, that's what I ask my perspective. I'm not saying you're wrong. I'm not saying you can't be right. I'm not saying that there isn't any rational reason. I'm saying, from my perspective, you go into a place where ideally you are going to have engineering standards be higher. You're going to have a point where there is an energy budget at some point, where there is, there's part damage that's going to be impacting how your mech breaks, so your design will change how tough it is. You're going to have, a point where you can throw in all the guns you want, but if you have a mech with 2 quadruple-barreled MGs on its side, and it's just like this big blocks of gun, versus one with the exact same thing in a single block array, on the whole, there's not a lot of difference. In fact, in that configuration, the 4-barreled gun would have the advantage because it's broken up over 2 spaces. And we talk about what the trade-offs are with compression tech. There are a lot of trade-offs with compression tech. Let me show you back over here at the Acheron I was just stroking my shaft about earlier. For a bit of a crude metaphor. We go back to the Acheron. Oh, what trade-offs did you make to make this? Look at that abomination of all this compression tech put together. You might ask if you are a person that doesn't believe in compression tech. And I say that's a pretty fair point to bring up. But what did I sacrifice? No, seriously, what did I sacrifice? I sacrificed mechanical stability and HP and energy content is what I sacrificed. Because this stacked torso that gives me higher ballistic resistance, this isn't solid chassis. No, in fact, the entire point of it is it's not solid chassis. This reduces my HP and energy. This thing at its size, having heavy construction, has as much HP as a light construction Rex of the exact same size. It has 2/3 of the energy. It's not extraordinarily tough, and depending on the situation, I researched the tech greatly, and I've gotten great at this. I've got a 10-piece offset right here you can see on these plates, so they don't cause too much physics glitching, and I've dummied selective parts on the ballistic shield, if I'm not mistaken. Let me see if I can find where I put my little ballistic shield. What the hell? Are you freaking kidding me? Interesting. Oh, yeah, sorry, I loaded the AIC 130L. I wanted the AIC 140, which is a newer model. So we look at this, and this is even more tech than the other one, by the way. This is the real deal. We look around at these shields. Well, I would love to have increased reliability of these shields, except my compressed guns didn't really give me that much space to do that in, because I can't really survive with collision. And actually, these ones don't have dummied material. The predecessor to this sort of heavy machine gun shield mounting on the guns had to have the material dummied for configurations like this that make the gun incapable of operating properly. When this thing gets hit by a mortar, it starts dislocating parts if it's a high-force mortar. If it starts taking a really good bump somewhere, it, in very rare circumstances, can dislocate the ballistic chest plate. In other circumstances, it can have ribs get caught inside thigh armor and vice versa. So, although this is strong for its size for many reasons, including compression tech or stacking, whatever you want to call it, at day's end, there is nothing that inherently makes this better. There's nothing that makes this unfair, because if you went out on a limb and you made this same bot using most of the same principles, you could get nearly identical to the same result. The only difference is you are closing the gap. You are getting that close distance in. And it's what you choose to do with that I think will influence your build more than anything else. Like every build, there is so many factors at work. How big is it? How well can you cover the vital areas with armor or energized sword plates? Or how much diameter do you need for a personal shield? How much energy budget does it have relative to its size? Does it have a thin profile, a short profile? You know, you've been talking about a million things, but we're talking about combat. You want to do the best with what you have. That's my bottom line here. And I can understand the idea to not use compression tech, and like I said, I've said this a million times, and I'll say it again. I understand it, because it does seem game-breaking, but we're talking about how this game operates these days and what engineering means in its full depth and in its full design. In this game, you are really not playing the complete experience if you don't use invisibility, if you don't use compression, if you don't use certain features to just get higher yield. As you engineer, you're going to be aware of more features. You're going to be being able to design the same thing in less space, in better, even without compression tech in the picture. So we talk about, should you stack weapons? I'm not going to make you. I'm not going to tell you you're right or you're wrong either way. But I'm saying if you want to owe it to yourself to being your best thing to a fight and try and do your best as you can, I would prefer you sit there and you optimize your build. You compress weapons, or you add armor, make it durable, you do what you're going to do, then go in with a half-cocked design that needs refining, refuse to refine certain areas of it, and then proceed to call bullshit on everyone in the room for using stacked weapons instead of you. I see that happen, and I'm not going to judge these people, but I'm going to say, objectively and logically, I don't see the point. And this has been my giant spiel, ramble, PSA, fluff piece. Hope you found this informative. If you have a counterpoint, I would love to hear it. Maybe there's something I'm not getting. I'm open to the idea. But I build some pretty complex and really competitive crap in this game these days. I have put more than as I like to admit in this game, pushing the envelope with friends, with strangers, trying to take it to the best I can design. And I can say, I don't think I would have had as much of an experience rewarding or anything else if I hadn't really compressed it down. That's my bottom line. Until next time, WCCC, signing out.